You know that feeling? It's like 11:30 p.m. on a Tuesday, you're lying in bed, the lights are out, but you can't sleep. So you grab your phone, you open your banking app, and you stare at the number. You've been working hard for years. You've been cutting back on the stuff you actually enjoy. You've been saying no to dinners with friends. You've been packing those sad little lunches that somehow get soggy by noon. And you look at the balance, and maybe you see $12,000, maybe $20,000, maybe even $35,000 if you're lucky, and you just feel stuck. It feels like you're running on a treadmill that's set to an incline of 15, sweating through your shirt, but the scenery outside the window hasn't changed in months. It's this quiet, heavy frustration that whispers, is this actually ever going to work? Or, am I just broken because I can't seem to get past this hurdle? My name is Mac, and I spend way too much time thinking about money, financial psychology, and why some people seem to effortlessly build wealth while others stay stuck in the same financial patterns for decades. And honestly, I've seen this specific scenario play out hundreds of times. In the emails I get, the comments I read, and the conversations I have with friends who are actually doing everything right but still feel like they're failing. And here is the thing that nobody really prepares you for. The thing that actually keeps most people from becoming wealthy. There is a specific, psychological dead zone in your financial life, and it almost always centers right around that $50,000 mark. Getting to your first $50,000 in net worth, in savings, in investments is, statistically, the hardest financial milestone you will ever hit. It is harder than going from $50,000 to $100,000. It is harder than going from $100,000 to $1 million. And once you understand why it's so hard, and why the math feels so rigged against you right now, the whole game changes. Today, we're going to break down exactly why this specific number is the wall that so many people crash into, why your brain is screaming at you to quit right when you're getting started, and most importantly, how to push through to the other side where the money actually starts to feel real. So, let's talk about the math of despair. And I know, math sounds boring, but stick with me here because this is the stuff that keeps you up at night. When you are starting from zero, or even from a negative number like debt, the early phase of wealth accumulation is brutal because of the way compound interest or the lack thereof actually works. In the beginning, your balance is small. Let's say you're managing to scrape together $500 a month to invest. That's amazing. That's a lot of money for most people. But in the first year, if you put that into the market, you might make, maybe 7 or 8% if we're being optimistic. So you do the math. $500 times 12 months is $6,000, and 7% of $6,000 is $420. That's it. You worked all year. You stressed about your budget. You gave up buying the new phone. You ate the soggy sandwiches. And at the end of the year, the market gave you $420. I mean, think about that. That's one nice dinner out for two. It's barely a car payment. It feels insignificant. It feels like a joke. And that is the trap. Because you are contributing 100% of the growth in your account with your own sweat and labor. The money is just sitting there, lazy. It's not pulling its weight yet. This is what I call the linear trap. You are used to linear effort. If I work an hour, I get paid for an hour. But investing is exponential. And in the early stages, the exponential curve looks flat. It looks like nothing is happening. And this is where most people quit. They look at their $420 in gains and think, why am I risking this money in the stock market for $420? I could just put this in a high-yield savings account and make the same amount without the stress. But here is the secret. The $50,000 mark is the tipping point. It is the invisible line where the math starts to flip. Once you cross $50,000, assuming you keep adding to it, the money makes starts to become a meaningful chunk of your income. Let me give you an example. If you have $50,000 invested and you get that same average 7% return, that's $3,500 a year. Still not life-changing, but it's better. But now imagine you're diligent. You keep adding your $500 a month. 5 years later, you're at roughly $100,000. Now, that 7% return is $7,000 a year. That's a nice bonus. But jump forward 10 years. You're crossing the $200,000 mark. Now, the interest is $14,000 a year. Do you see what happened? The interest money you did not work for is now matching your yearly contributions. You are effectively doubling your salary without working overtime. But you don't get to that doubling phase unless you suffer through the $420 phase. And that $420 phase feels like it lasts forever when you're staring at a $10,000 balance. It feels like you're walking through mud. You have to accept that right now. You are planting an oak tree in a concrete park. It's going to be a long time before you see any shade. And honestly, that is incredibly frustrating. Now, let's move on to something a bit more psychological, and honestly, a bit more painful to talk about. The lifestyle inflation, danger zone. This is the silent killer of the $50,000 milestone. See, when you are broke, or when you're living paycheck to paycheck, your decisions are made for you. You can't buy the new car because the bank won't approve you. You can't go on the fancy vacation because you literally don't have the credit card limit for it. Being broke is a prison. Yes, but it's a prison with very clear walls. You know exactly where you stand. But once you start making some progress, once you build up a little cushion, maybe you have $15,000, $20,000 in the banks, something dangerous happens. The walls come down. You start getting pre-approved for credit cards in the mail with limits that make your eyes water. You walk past a car dealership, and suddenly the salesperson is actually nice to you because your credit score has gone up. You enter this middle ground where you have enough access to money to get yourself into serious trouble, but not enough wealth to absorb the shock. This is the $50,000 dead zone. Let me tell you a quick story about a guy I knew. Let's call him Dave. Dave was exactly like you. He was super disciplined. He paid off his student loans and started saving. He hit $20,000 in savings, and he felt like a king. He felt invincible. He got a promotion at work, a nice raise, and he thought, I made it. I'm good with money. So, he leased a brand new BMW. It was only, $400 a month. I can afford that, he said. Then he moved into a slightly nicer apartment because, hey, he deserved it. That was another $300 more a month. Then he started upgrading his wardrobe, buying organic groceries, ordering DoorDash a couple of times a week because he was busy. Fast forward 2 years. His income had gone up, but his savings hadn't moved. In fact, they had gone down because of some emergency that popped up. He was back to square one, but now he had a leased car and a fancy apartment, anchoring him in place. That's what happens at the $50,000 mark. This is the point where wants start to sound exactly like needs. You tell yourself, I work hard, I deserve this upgrade, and maybe you do deserve a treat. But the problem is, when you upgrade your lifestyle before you've built your wealth foundation, you are building your house on sand. The $50,000 mark is where you have to make the hardest choice of your life. Do you want to look rich or do you want to be rich? Because I promise you, you cannot do both at this stage. You have to keep driving the beater car. You have to keep living in the apartment that's a little too small. You have to keep cooking at home. It feels like you're missing out on life. You look around at your friends who are leasing Teslas and going to Bali, and you feel poor. You feel like you're failing, but you're not failing. You're just playing the long game while they are playing the short game, and the long game is lonely in the middle. This brings us to the third major hurdle, the psychological valley of disappointment. This is a concept I love from James Clear, the author of Atomic Habits, and it applies so perfectly to money. When you start a new financial journey, the results are okay. You pay off a small credit card. You save your first $1,000. You get a dopamine hit. You feel a rush of excitement. You think, I'm going to be a millionaire. You see the potential. You're high on the vision of the future. But then, reality sets in. You realize that saving $1,000 was actually the easy part. Saving the next $10,000 is just work. It's monotonous. It's repetitive. The excitement wears off, and you are left with the daily grind of saying no to yourself. And this creates a gap, a massive valley between the effort you are putting in and the results you are seeing. You're working harder than ever, but your net worth is climbing painfully slow. You're in the valley of disappointment, and this is where most people die, metaphorically speaking. This is where they quit. Why do they quit? Because they misunderstand how growth works. We expect our progress to be a straight line pointing up. We think, if I work twice as hard, I should get twice the results. But financial growth isn't a straight line. It's a hockey stick. There is a long, flat handle for what feels like an eternity. You're pushing and moving millimeters. And then, eventually, you hit the blade of the stick, and the trajectory shoots up vertically. But you cannot get to the vertical part without enduring the flat part. And the flat part feels terrible. It feels like you're failing. It feels like the universe is punishing you for being responsible. I've been there. Honestly,